Okay, well, today we are blessed and excited about having our very own Jeff Jan speaking with us today. And his topic is the conscious evolution through universal oneness. And I have to say, I'm just very eager to hear what you have to say, Jeff. Jeff is an essential member of the CFUO organization. He has been with us from the very beginning, and he and Mickey together have been on the worship committee for almost forever. And they did a fantastic job of making contributions to the activities of our organization and to bringing their own perspective of light and love to the group and to our consciousness. And it is with great pleasure that I introduce Jeff and mark some of his accomplishments, like bringing to us SQ21, which I'm still trying to figure out what it gets to after you get through the worldview. But he is a great speaker, and he is a thoughtful thinker, and he has a perspective that blends not only knowledge, but also pace of music, which is a way of experiencing his perspectives that are unique and challenging. Jeff Jans, our speaker.
Wow, Doug. Thank you. Pretty amazing. And Mickey thanks you too, because she was part of that. Yes, I am going to talk today about conscious evolution and how conscious evolution is brought about through universal oneness, principles, and behavior. So I'm just going to leap right on in. We are the first generation to be conscious of the evolution that has brought us to the present time. As a result of this consciousness, we have the ability to guide future evolution on a worldwide scale. As more of us become aware of this opportunity, there is a major caution that needs to be we need to be alert to, and it's our ego. We must be alert to how our ego will want to shape that future and instead bring our higher selves to the table. So I titled the talk Conscious Evolution Through Universal Oneness, but when I first read about it way back when we were still at Diane's dance studio, I thought it extremely Pollyannish. Who are these folks fooling here? This is crazy. Now, 4 or 5 years later, I am changing my mind. I have been reading and learning about it, and I have some thoughts to give you about it. And this is how I'll go about it. First, I want to talk a little about what is conscious evolution, and then why does it matter? So we'll take those two first, and then how do you make it actionable? How do you do it? So there's some theory, there's some principles at work, and then there's some practical application of it. Here we go. All of the world's spiritual traditions, as well as psychotherapy, are based upon the insight that the first step in awakening and healing is to simply see what it is, be aware of it. Our healing practice is to become an objective witness or impartial observer of our lives and tell ourselves the truth about whatever, about our situation. So it's about honest self-reflection and non-judgmental witnessing providing a way to cut through the BS. So then, when we are taking responsibility for our lives and our relationships, we expand our capability for living more consciously. Charles Darwin, touring the Galapagos, his research led to a particular thing about, well, he became fascinated by finches, the birds. And it seemed that the birds were different from island to island. They were developing different sized beaks for different kinds of seeds. And it led him to discover the theory and the name of natural selection. The evolutionary changes in the birds are in direct relationship with the food supply. So their whole way of being changed over time as a result of what was available to them to eat. Sort of like, adapt or die. Now I'm going to switch from Darwin to more modern times and think about this. Within the past couple of decades, the combined power of television, the internet, and especially the telescopes, Hubble and Webb, are producing just amazing revolution in our capacity to understand and view the human species as a whole. We are at a time in our lives and in our human development where we can be very, very transparent about who we are. And that's a result of all of these different technologies that have come about rather recently in the time of history. So this opens a whole new possibility for consciously choosing what and how we want to evolve. We get to choose that. I think that's pretty amazing. Anyway, why does conscious evolution matter? When living consistently with conscious evolution, we individually and collectively take responsibility for the mistakes we've made and in our past human existence, so that we are fully conscious of the fact that we now can affect our own evolution and everything we do. This awareness helps us to take a giant leap into the next stage, whatever that is. Once our evolution change begins to occur in a pretty seamless way, we have about us the ability to make that happen. So wait, here's a quick meditation, just like, spur of the moment. Would you close your eyes and picture a time when you thought negatively about a place before going there? Then, after having actually been to that place, you find that your first thoughts were incorrect. Your willingness to see for yourself enabled you to change your perspective. Thanks, that's good. That's why conscious evolution matters, because we can look at and see something that in its reality, in all its dimensions, and not just see it on the surface. So, yeah, it's why it matters. It's why now the other thing to do is imagine what we just looked at, the situation or the place that you were visiting on a huge worldwide universal scale. And imagine that that's the way all of us are receiving and perceiving what we believe to be negative or not really matter. So good. Thank you for indulging me on that one. How is conscious evolution actionable? What do we do with it? Well, the first major step is to recognize that it's about meditative traditions and it's grounded to some degree in psychotherapy. And continually develop our capacity for compassionate self-reflection and non-judgmental observation. In other words, every area of our lives is up for conscious reflection and choice. It's really everything: our food, our transportation, housing, public works like roads and the arts and countless other things. So, and there are very specific actionable things to do as well, which we'll get into in just a little bit. One of them has to do with small groups and the way in which prehistoric humans kept themselves and lived almost exclusively in small groups. And more about that in just a bit. Let's talk about survival of the fittest. Oh boy. I read this recently, and I thought, wow, this is cool. Contrary to what most people understand about survival of the fittest, it is not survival of the strongest. It has some to do with that, but mostly not. What it's about are genetic pools that are able to adapt to the changing natural environment and at the same time interact with pre-existing genes in order to leave offspring that are better suited to deal with their environment. So it's genetics that drive survival of the fittest. And the other aspect of that is a way to, and what early humans thought was important, was to stay in small groups, to be collaborative and have a common identity. Does anybody see the movie 1 Million Years BC with Raquel Welch? Yeah, I figured I would be the only one. I watched it like, 50 times. It was really great movie. Never mind. Raquel and her gang fought off all kinds of hostile creatures in almost every frame of the movie. And it wasn't that far off from reality in that respect. So the environment for early humans was incredibly hostile. And the key to survival was to stay small and know who everyone is and know your territory and to be collaborative. People had roles, people had their jobs and went about them. So the people that got admitted to the group were selected on the ability to function in a group. the individual and the group were threatened by all kinds of things, like I was talking about, infections and lack of food and shelter and predators. And it brought about the fear reflex or response, fight or flight. It was important, extremely important to, as Monty Python would say, run away when the time is appropriate. It actually continues today. You know, we still need to know about fight or flight. So, why does it matter? Why does conscious evolution matter to us all? And again, it's about genetics to some degree that have had influence on our current behavior and on our interpretation of events and the news, the events that we do not witness ourselves. We hear about them, see about them only. So we've been evolving for millions of years in small cooperating small groups, usually of about 30 to 50 people. And there was great empathy, altruism, and collaboration amongst these groups. But the small groups were vulnerable to outsiders, strangers, vagabonds. So that fear became part of our DNA. It became something that was just simply embedded in us. And all along with, I mean, there's other biological codes we have that are in direct opposition to that, which is curiosity or finding the source of something or why something is what it is. But the fear gives us tunnel vision. It's an exaggerated focus on a specific problem, which means less control from frontal lobe and much higher anxiety around our emotions, and essentially fear. So the tunnel vision stems from a lack of common identity and the perception that the strangers around us could threaten the core of the existence of the tribe. Does that ring true today? I think it does. We fear the unknown, and especially the unknown in a person. There is no doubt that differences between us continue to raise the fight or flight response. And if not curtailed, eventually it will, utilizing the principles of universal oneness and conscious evolution, we will continue to be divided, separate, and unable to take advantage of the opportunity that conscious evolution provides us. So it's a big deal to be able to rid ourselves of the fear of, you know, that is around and having to do with people we're not so familiar with. Okay, how then is conscious evolution put into action? Spiritual guidance, spiritual imagination, optimizing force. It enables us to perceive and realize the highest potential in any given situation. It is the quality essential for you're going to like this. Sufis call it himma. And it is the creativity of the heart. There is only one cosmic happening, one unfolding and revealing of life's infinite potential taking place in every moment. On the other hand, we are here to show up and serve with conscious presence, bold humility, and exquisite artistry as the responsible hands and hearts for what comes next. But how, with our enormous capacity for self-deception and rationalization, can we tell the difference between our being spiritual, spiritually guided, or unconsciously compelled? In other words, fooled, manipulated into something. And how can we discern true from false images of the future that we're here to create? It's a large subject, but it's possible to at least name some steps that can help to cope with and to some degree alleviate that those self-deceptions and realizations that are keeping us from looking at conscious evolution. First is to be aligned with the ground of being. Anybody know that phrase? Aligned with being? Yeah. And that's through practices that we all do to some extent, designed to quiet us, to calm us down, meditation. Discernment of what is leading us to act is coming from a place of separateness and force, or is it from oneness and flow? How do you discern that? Well, ask yourself, for one thing. The other thing is to read Melanie's book. It's got a lot in that. Action, take willingness to follow one's guidance rather than as willfulness to assert or defend the separate self, so that you're willing to go along with your own guidance or somebody else's guidance, utilizing alignment and discernment prior to that. And then finally, retrospection is about an after action review, like you're reviewing your motives and the full circle of the intended and unintended consequences of what you did. And you learn, you correct and realign with the ground of being. So those are 4 ways to put conscious evolution into action. There are many more examples that have to do, well, one of which is about storytelling. Being able to talk about and tell stories about your presence and your world to others that would have no idea about that. And then the reverse of that, be able to listen to those others who are telling their story. And so without it, it's totally personal, and it's really in the department of lore. Way back when, the lore that we have to know our history. So that's another is about media and how to use the media for a collective mind. We do use the media for a collective mind now, but it's often about selling stuff and consumer oriented, but it can be utilized in a way that would be consistent with conscious involvement in evolution. So There's more of these, but I just wanted to give you a little taste of the types of actions that we can take first as really as a community to the once collective mind gets going on this. But right now, difficult. It's really more about individual action. The human race has developed godlike powers. And they are enabling us to create the future. How do we handle it? What's behind that, or what's the energy in it? What I said at the beginning, that we need to be alert to ego, is, I think, incredibly true. A self-centered ego, an ego-driven portion of humanity most likely will use these godlike powers for their own personal gain, not consistent, or is actually the antithesis of universal oneness. So we need to be aware of that. And so all throughout history, there have been those who have shifted from the separated self to a unified self. Another way to say it is from Marianne Williamson, shift from body identification to spiritual identification. Anybody heard that? About that shift to be made. And in so doing, the spirit, I can't, well, first about my own body, I can't, when I think about my body and identifying it that way, there's no way that I can think spiritually about everyone. My body is mine, and yours is yours. And I was going to say never the twain shall meet, but that's not true. The idea that we can take on a spiritual identification as our essence, and that extends out beyond the limitations of my body. And so does yours. And so that's where a spiritual connection is made, when we are thinking of ourselves, identifying ourselves in ways that are grounded for sure in spirituality, but we are obviously in our own bodies, and so need to transcend that. I read in the New Testament the phrase, "There is only one begotten Son." Most people take that to mean it's Jesus. But I got a metaphysical interpretation of it that is far different. And it can be interpreted as not just the one begotten Son is all of us. And so we are one. Oneness is far more than an intellectual understanding. And then to fully embody and embrace it is an enormous, overwhelming task. An ego is to some degree similar to the brain's amygdala. The amygdala takes over and hijacks our rational way of thinking and of being, and its original purpose was to help us with fight or flight, right? So it can still be useful. Our ego is important. It helps us achieve results we might not have obtained otherwise. It enables us to have a positive image of ourselves and to motivate us to keep on going. But like the amygdala, it can lead to trouble and can be a strength overdone. So conscious evolution is to bring our A game to the table. which some would call our higher self, and relegate ego to the back, to the bench. So the shift from body identification to spiritual identification comes in small doses, I think. I think that you have to somehow experience it to know what it is. How have I made the shift? Am I in the process of it? And I think the small groups that we were talking about before is a way to do that. Small groups as a kind of training ground for how the capacity of a spiritual and in universal oneness can be sort of lived and experienced in a way that can help you in greater ways as well. I will explain all that a little bit better in just a second. A small group of people, wait, I want to set this up. When we work as in and with a small group, sometimes the group has gelled together in such a way that its purpose is achieved in an extraordinary way, beyond the expectations that anyone would have initially thought of or dreamt. So here's a scenario that's like that to some degree. A small group of people take on a project that requires numerous components. The members of the group were chosen for their expertise in at least one of the project's components. They are asked to work collaboratively, even though each is an expert at their component. What does the success of a project like this depend on? Well, a willingness to let go of the ego and of being an expert in your particular field, and use that expertise for a higher objective of the entire process. So once each contributor in this scenario gets it, the trust grows. Even though they may disagree at times, they do it because they understand that they need to disagree. Disagreement leads eventually to a superior solution. So that's one example of looking at and seeing, being a part of oneness, a team, a group that is achieving in ways that it really never thought it could. Anybody read the book, It Takes a Village? You know, to Hillary and ghostwriters. The phrase, it takes a village, is an African proverb. It means that an entire community of people must provide for and interact positively with the children. And the children experience and grow in safe, healthy environment. There's another way that a whole community has taken to heart the idea of oneness. You know, I'm as responsible for your child as I am for my own. That's not something that we take on here, I think. Here's another scenario. Just let me see. Oh boy, I'll move this along much faster. Mickey and I saw a play recently at Kansas City Repertory Company that was about, set in 1954. It was about repercussions from the Kansas City public swimming pools being designated as for whites only. And it really was great. But the creation of a play like that starts with the playwright, and then the playwright writes a script. Then a producing organization, in this case KC Rep, wants to invest in staging it, and they agree with the potential of it. So the producing organization hires a director, and the director begins to read and talk to the playwright about the play itself. What's it about? What is it? What do you sense from it? What's it smell like and taste like? And all the good stuff that is coloring the play itself. And then that creates a map for them, and they can then go hire actors and designers, for costumes, for lights, for set, for properties, for sound, everything based on that that criteria that they talked about originally. That's why they call the person who does this work the director. So what then happens is that each individual who has a particular expertise in putting the play together is being led by that vision that the director and playwright put forth, and their contributions kind of revolve around that, but they also inform each other. So if the lighting director says, I got this idea about blah, 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 and the costume director says, whoa, that's terrific, and then I can do that, and they're taking off from each other. They're feeding each other about that particular aspect of the play. So that in itself is a huge example of the way in which oneness can produce gigantic results. So it's like we extract from an experience like that oneness, but it's in a small group. So how can it be applied on a far grander scale? That's the conundrum now, to do that and create our own evolution. So let's do a meditation. Take your time, be calm, breathe in a little bit, and some music is going to play. This music is actually called Universal Oneness. Bring to mind a time when you were part of a group that achieved results above and beyond what was expected. It could be a work group, a sports team, the entire crew of a play, or the pit crew of a stock car race. See in your mind's eye people members of the group. Remember what you liked about a few of them. What was the purpose of this group? When you first joined the group, were you excited, careful, cautious, maybe a little intimidated? Now, as the group begins to do its purpose, how was that? How and when did these emotions begin to change to what they would eventually become? When it was complete, what were your feelings about the experience? Be specific about that. Consider now how you can use this recall of your group achievement with a larger group. Maybe the larger group is a chamber of commerce or a neighborhood association. Maybe it's the entire Northland of Kansas City. And so, find the link between a small group experience and using what you know and learn from that to create and live conscious evolution. And when you're ready, come on back. Keep listening to Universal Oneness. I had a lot of fun putting this thing together and working on it. And so I hope you had fun listening to it. And it, had brought up some things, some good stuff. So thank you.